In this video, we're going to talk about how to use power drills and impact drivers. Now, in Tech Theater, we use these a lot. This is kind of our bread and butter. We use these basically to put everything together. We don't do a lot of gluing or nailing or things like that. Everything is put together with screws. So this is something that everybody needs to be comfortable using and know how to use, because you're going to do it at some point, because we do it all the time. So, first of all, the difference between a power drill or a power driver and an impact driver is basically just the way that it puts it in. So we have our drills that sort of have the longer nose, and they have a good power to them, but the impact driver actually has a hammering mechanism inside, and you can hear it make that sort of a very fast buzzing, sort of a hammering sound as it's hammering in. And the reason we have those is because sometimes there are jobs that require basically more power. We need particularly a hard screw to get in, or we have some more difficult things maybe to take out. So you need that power to use. The only time we don't want to use them is because sometimes they're too powerful. So if we're doing a job that these power drills are doing just fine on, we don't want to use the impact driver because it will do what we call stripping the screw. And so with a screw, at the top of the screw, right, every screw has the design on the head, right? And it's got that because that's where your bit goes in and grabs that design, those grooves. Well, if you're stripping a screw, if it's going too fast and it is, boring out the top of the head of your screw, you will have a stripped screw. So something like this, where now, as you can see, it's basically a circle because it has been stripped so much. And so this screw is basically trash because it's going to be really, really difficult to get this in because our bit is not going to grab the top because these grooves have been worn away. So these are the power drivers. You're going to need a battery. We keep the batteries here up top on our tool cart. You push the button, it'll tell you how much power you got. I got 4 units there worth of battery power, so this one's nice and charged. You slide it in, it's good to go. You push the buttons on the sides to take the battery out if you need to. But this is good to go. If you're going to go forward or reverse, you're going to use these buttons on the side. So, as you can see, it's got an arrow, and the arrow points which direction. So this arrow is pointing forward, so this one goes, if I'm putting in a screw. On the other side, this button is pointing that way. So that's if I'm taking out a screw, right? So you're going to push in whichever button you want to go. If you push this halfway in, that's basically kind of locking. So it's going to lock the trigger. So now I can't push the trigger in if it's halfway in. So if you're having trouble pushing it in, check that. Make sure, I'm going the right direction, or I've got it pushed all the way in. A lot of times if you're having trouble putting a screw in, make sure that you're on reverse, or you're not on reverse, because sometimes you'll be on reverse and it's spinning the wrong way, and it's not going to go in because you're going in reverse. So that's something to always check, is this button. Make sure you're going the right way. Some of our drivers actually do have an impact setting. So we have ones that are strictly impact drivers, like this one. As you can see, it's got a shorter nose on it. This is just an impact driver. But these are power drivers that have an impact setting. So you can see it's got the hammer there, and you just flip it down to hammer setting, boom, and then flip it back up to screw. And there's also a drill setting as well for when you use drills. So to use this, we have to put in a bit, okay? So there are several types of bits that we use, and I want you guys to be all familiar with all of them. So to do that, we're going to first put in a bit holder, okay? And that's exactly what it sounds like. It holds the bits. So it's a little piece that, like this, you put it in here, and then you're going to put your bit in there. Now when you're putting this in, you have to tighten this, which is called the chuck. So you're going to put this in here, you're going to make sure it's straight. It is possible to put this in crooked, okay? So you want to make sure it's straight. Now as you can see, as I turn the chuck, let's see, I'm probably turning it the wrong way here. There we go. As I turn it, you can see these 3 sort of teeth start to close in, okay? And as they're closing in, they're going to grab the bit holder that I put inside. And then when you turn it the other way, they open up, okay? So I'm going to open this just enough. I'm going to go ahead and slide this in here. Then I'm going to turn this enough to when I start hearing clicking, like that. And then that means it's tight. That means I've got it securely in there. You want to make sure that the chuck is completely secure before you start going. Otherwise, it's going to slip out, it's going to fall out, and you're going to have a hard time. So now that I've got my bit holder in, I can choose which bit I'm going to use. And that depends on the kind of screw I decide to use. We use what is called a star bit, or a T25, or a torque bit screw. They all mean the same thing. And basically, the head looks like this. And these are becoming more popular now. But as you can see, the head has a bit of a star pattern. And then the bit that you're going to put in also has that same pattern. Here, I'll do it like a makeup tutorial. Look at that. So you got your star pattern, right? So these are star bits, torque bits, T25, all means the same thing. We also have your Phillips bit, and that is the more common bit that you've probably seen a lot. It's the cross, right? It's the plus sign on the head, and the Phillips looks like that. It's the same thing, okay? We also use, a lot of times, this square bit, okay? And we use these a lot. As you can see, it's a very tiny, and it's just a square shape. And the screw also has that same square head on it, okay? And we use these are trim screws. We use these a lot if we're putting up trim for an interior set of some kind. That's what these are used for, okay? We also have the option, if we're drilling something, we will use our power drivers to put in drill bits. So we have drill bits of all sizes, coming from this 1/8 drill bit that we use to pre-drill stuff. When you pre-drill something, you make sure that you are not going to split your wood. So when you're screwing something in, you don't want the screw to make the wood split apart like that. So you'll pre-drill by using this, so giving it a nice groove to go in and grab onto the sides. This is a bigger drill, so if we need to bore out a hole somewhere, we can use something like this. There's all kinds of bits that we can put in to do all sorts of jobs. So we also put some things like this. These don't go into bit holders, and I'll show you how to put these in a bit here. Okay, so now that I've got my bit holder in, I'm going to put in a drill bit, or my bit. I'm going to go ahead and do the T25 there, the torque bit, and there we go. Now I'm ready to go. So if I'm in forward, I pull the trigger and it will start spinning, and so I can use it on my screw, right? Okay, these have what's called a variable speed on them with the trigger, the pressure trigger. So you can give it a little bit of pressure, and as you can see, it's starting to spin just a little bit. Or if I pull it all the way down, it's going that full speed. You never want to really start full speed because you may not know if you're like right, if you've got it lined up. And if you're going full speed and you're not lined up right, you're gonna miss, you're gonna slip, you're gonna strip that screw head out like I was talking about. So you wanna make sure you start off slow. Once you know you're right on, you can go. The next thing you wanna do is make sure you're giving it good pressure. The screw's gonna do a lot of the work for you, as it has that pattern on it, that design, that screw, right? That's math and physics and all that stuff, right? The screw is designed to work. It's designed to go in. So if you're giving it adequate pressure, I like to put my hand back here, that helps. If I'm giving it good pressure and I'm pushing just slightly as I go in, the screw's gonna do the work it's gonna go in for me. Sometimes you gotta hold the screw and go a little slow to get it started, and then once it's started, then you can really put it in there. The other thing to remember is to make sure you have good leverage as you're putting a screw in. If you're going straight down on something, that's good. If you're doing it about here, chest level, that's good. But if I'm ever working above my shoulders or above my head, I don't have the best leverage. I'm not able to push as well as I would like to if I was down lower. So always make sure if something's up higher, get a step ladder, get something to stand on so that you can have that really good leverage and you can work right here, which is also safer because if you're working up here, you have that chance of slipping, dropping this on your face or something like that. Okay, so the other thing that I see a lot of, that's how you have trouble with, is when someone's trying to put this in, they will not be at the right angle. So say I've got this screw, right? I've got this in my board. I don't want to be going up here like this at this angle. I want my bit and my drill to be right at the same angle as this. It's going to grab better, it's going to have better control, and I'm going to be able to push this screw right into where I need it to go. Okay? Now, when we're talking about screws, we want to make sure that we pick the right length screw. And here's the most important thing to remember. You want the screw to go all the way through the thin piece and halfway through the thick piece. Now, what does that mean? Well, we have woods of different varying sizes, so we want to make sure that we're putting it together correctly. So, I have these two pieces of wood. I'm going to screw them together. This one is thinner than this one, obviously, so I want to make sure I have a screw that goes all the way through this and about halfway into this one. I don't want a screw that is too long, because as you can see, it's going to stick out the bottom, so that's not good, right? I don't want a screw that is too short, because if I go in here, and it does go into this piece, but just barely. And so it's barely hanging on. It's not very secure. It's not going to grab on. With enough force, I could easily pry that up and pry that little bit out of that big wood. So if we build our set like that, it's going to be a lot easier to fall apart, and it's not going to work as well. So I want to make sure. And the same thing goes for, doing through all the way through the thick piece into the thin piece. If I do it that way, I've barely got enough screw going halfway into the little piece, so it's easier to pop out. So to make it the best secure, we're going to go all the way through the thin piece, halfway into the thin piece. Okay? Okay. That final thing I'll show you is the impact driver. So when you use the impact driver, you're going to put the bit in. You're going to take it. It doesn't have a chuck per se, but it does have this little collar here. You're going to pull up on that collar. That basically unlocks it. You stick the bit in there, make sure it's down all the way. Then you can let go of the collar now that it's in there, and now it won't come out. Then when you want to take it out, you just pull this up. Make sure you've got your hand on it, and so once it's pulled up, then you can pull it out. If you don't have a hand on it, some of these you can just pull it and it will jump right out of there. So make sure if you're up on a ladder, you don't want that to jump out and land on somebody, right? Okay, the final thing I want to talk about is safety. So there's a few things to think about. When I am putting in a drill bit like this, which we didn't talk about yet, but it's the same concept, right? I'm going to put this in. I'm going to make sure that as I put that in, it's straight. And I'm going to be careful not to have my fingers too close to this while it's going, because this drill bit could tear up my fingers, right? So I want to make sure my fingertips are safe. The other way to protect your fingertips is to be very careful after you've put something in or taken a screw out. All that energy from this drill has gone into that screw, and it's made that screw incredibly hot. So if you pull a screw out, it drops to the ground, you go to pick it up, it's going to be really hot, and it will be hot enough to burn and blister your fingers, okay? So you want to be very careful. Sometimes it's okay just to let it sit there, let it cool off before you take it. Also, when you put something in, sometimes you want to make sure that you put the screw in flush. The top of that screw is going to be really hot as well. So you want to make sure that you don't burn your fingertips that way, okay? Safety glasses are not necessarily required for using a drill like this. It is a power tool, but there's not. If you want to wear safety glasses, great. I would love for you to do it, but you don't have to. The only time I really would want you to wear safety glasses if you were using a drill like this, or even something like this that was making a lot of wood chips. As you're drilling something, a lot of wood chips are going to be flying out, a lot of sawdust will be flying out as you're boring wood away. So you would want to make sure that you don't get any of that sawdust in your eyes. So safety glasses might be good there. The other thing is these have a lot of pull power. So if you have long hair, that long hair needs to be pulled up in a ponytail. We don't wear any jewelry, anything that would be low dangling, any hoodie strings, things like that. We wouldn't want that to get caught up in here and pull. And if you're going fast enough and that gets caught, it will pull this right up to you, or right, depending on what it pulls on, right up into your face. Okay, so we don't want to do that. Or these have enough power. If this gets caught in your hair, it's going to pull that hair right out of your scalp, and we don't want that either. So always keep our hair pulled back. No long jewelry or necklaces. No hoodie strings. Earphones dangling down, like stuff like that. Not good as far as safety goes. Okay, so that's how you use power drills and impact drivers. We're going to be using these a lot as we build our sets. So get comfortable using them, and I'll see you in the next video.